I want to assure the people of Egypt and the people of Sudan that this construction will cause no significant harm to the people of our three countries, and specifically to the people of Egypt.
At one moment in time, it appeared that peace would prevail, foregoing conflict over a vital regional resource. But the dispute over water security has resurfaced time and again in a region reeling from poverty, drought, and instability. Relations between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia have now devolved into a complex triangle of contention. Egypt is concerned that Sudan, in collusion with Ethiopia, may be angling to cut it out of its share of water flows that travel north from the Blue Nile. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the largest hydroelectric project in Africa, is designed to hold a year's worth of river flow behind its concrete walls. How quickly Ethiopia fills the reservoir and how much that slows water flowing northward could have a potentially devastating effect on Egypt at the end of the line. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has referred to it as a matter of life or death.
انت هتطور وتنمي وانا معاك، لكن خلي بالك ان في مصر شعب بيعيش فقط على المية اللي بتيجي من هذا النهر.
90% of people in Egypt live on or near the banks of the River Nile, but energy-hungry Ethiopia may not be willing to wait too long to reap its rewards, and Sudan is eager to increase its water use to boost agriculture. Egypt pulled out of technical negotiations to measure the dam's impact on water flows in November. The impasse is being fueled by other disputes in what some fear could be a perfect storm for conflict. From the first days of Sudan's independence, Khartoum has had a territorial bone to pick with Cairo. Both countries claim the Halaib Triangle, a resource-rich border area. The dispute reignited last year when Egypt signed a controversial deal with Saudi Arabia. The agreement to give Riyadh control of 2 islands in the Red Sea also unilaterally recognized the Halaib Triangle as belonging to Egypt. Now relations between Egypt and Sudan are floundering. Khartoum has recalled its ambassador from Cairo. Another thread in this patchwork of Red Sea rivalries is Sudan's decision to give Turkey temporary control of Suakin Island. Cairo, which currently has frosty relations with Ankara, is concerned Turkey could use the opportunity to build a military base at its doorstep. Ankara denies any ulterior motives and says its plans are solely to restore the island and its Ottoman relics. But the real risk of all these disputes could be not resolving the issue of water security. Ethiopia's Renaissance Dam project is 60% complete, and there are fears it could start being filled before all the affected countries can reach a deal, setting up a potentially explosive scenario in a region where blood may not prove to be thicker than water. Randolph Nogel, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Giorgio Cafiero. He's the CEO and founder of Gulf State Analytics, a geopolitical risk consulting firm. And in Doha, we have Ahmed Adam. He's a Sudanese lawyer and activist, as well as a research associate at the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. I thank you both for joining us, gentlemen. Ahmed Adam, let me begin with you. There's tension between Egypt and Sudan. Water seems to be at the center of it. Who do you blame for the current tensions?
It's very difficult actually to blame any party. I'm just trying just sometimes to explain actually the position of both parties or something like that. But there's real problem actually between Sudan and Egypt, and that has been going on for a long time. For the start, actually, the issue of Halaib Triangle, I think one of the issues that have been going on for a long time, and I think that after the Egyptians government or Egyptian forces actually occupied Halaib That's one of the issues. Until now, actually, there is no any kind of solution for this, because Sudan called for negotiations or arbitration, but it seems that Egyptian government doesn't want actually to go for either kind of options. And then the issue of this Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and which is Sudan actually supporting or stand on the side of the Ethiopian government. And Egyptians actually, they are very angry with this kind of position, because Egyptians for a long time actually they have taken Sudan for granted when it comes to the issue of Nile water or something. So this is one of the issues. But in my view, actually, the main issue and the main cause of this current differences between the two countries is the ideological issue. The issue of Muslim Brotherhood, because Egyptian government, they see that Sudanese government is supporting the Muslim Brotherhood to overthrow the regime of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, because they think that the government of Sudan, they think that Abdel Fattah al-Sisi came under military coup, and then he removed President Morsi from power. And also the Egyptian government, I mean the Sudanese government, they think that this is like military government, and actually overthrew actually legitimate government and elected government by Morsi. So this is one of the problems. But the main, as I said, the main issue is the ideological issue. This is very, very important.
So
issue,
let's then, interestingly put.
problem.
So Giorgio, we have these issues. We have issues of the Nile. The Egyptians are saying, that Ethiopian dam would mean less water comes up to us. We'll lose out. The Sudanese are saying you occupy Halab Triangle. According to Ahmed, all of these things, both sides probably have a case, and it might differ from issue to issue. But at the heart of it all, it's politics and it's ideology, and it's the fact that the Egyptians believe that Sudan is supporting the Muslim Brotherhood to unsettle their government. Do you agree with that?
Yes, certainly all of these moving parts are in play. I absolutely agree with the points which my colleague in Doha made. I would just add that when we look at the greater MENA region, what we're seeing right now in the Red Sea is some of the geopolitical instability from the Qatar crisis, which is now about 7.5 months old, spilling over into the Nile. I think as the Gulf states are divided over the Qatar rift, it was very clear that Egypt was on the side of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi against Doha. Sudan was trying to have a good relationship with all 6 countries in the GCC. Of course, the Sudanese have grown close to Doha. At the same time, they have joined the Saudi UAE-led military coalition in Yemen. So I think some of this tension that we're seeing right now has to do with pressure on Sudan to pick a side in the increasingly polarized Arabian Peninsula dispute.
So Ahmed Adam, will they pick a side? This is set against the backdrop of the GCC crisis. Will Sudan have to make a decision at some point?
Of course, yes, this is, thank you. This is one of the issues, actually, because, the GCC crisis has sharply divided the region. As you can see that Eritrea and Egypt, actually, they are, siding with, they're on one side, actually, which is the side of the, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and then UAE, that actually supporting this. And Sudan, actually, right now, become more closer to Qatar, and that in itself actually make all this kind of divisions. And also there is Djibouti there, and also there is Chad as well, also supporting the Saudi Arabia and Egypt and AUE. And this is actually, as long as this actually conflict on GCC crisis actually continue to unfold, actually the more the region that will be divided, and then we don't know what's going to happen, because actually with the presence right now of Turkey, that even make these things very more complicated, because now the Saudi Arabia, they think that the deal over Sawakin, now Turkey become very close to the Red Sea, especially Jeddah is not far from Sawakin and this kind of thing. And so the President Siyaset Afwerki actually, he sees this, the good opportunity for him to exploit the divisions actually over the GCC crisis, so that he can, conduct some sort of hostile act against Ethiopia, or even against Sudan in some point, because also Sudan and Asmara and Khartoum also, they have been in conflict for a long time. So the GCC crisis, I think one of the main elements that also is deepen the current division and the current confrontation. And I do hope that actually regional organizations and sub-regional organizations like AU or IGAD or something to intervene so that to de-escalate the current tension, because this current tension can explode into full-fledged of confrontation, military confrontation.
Okay, so Ahmed,
yes.
you say regional. How about the World Bank? They're potentially a mediator. Would it work? Not regionally, not the AU, not the neighbors, but the World Bank. Might it work?
But the World Bank, that actually is going partially, that is going only about this Renaissance Dam. And until now, actually, Sudan and Ethiopia haven't agreed on this. This is actually a suggestion from Egyptian government, but actually Sudan and Ethiopia, it seems to me that till now they haven't declared their position whether they agree on this mediation or not, because this is still remain to be seen. But that is going to be partially. But the other complicated issues actually, the World Bank cannot actually resolve it. As a matter of fact, the World Bank is just like economic or financial kind of entity. But this is very political, diplomatic, and diplomatic kind of crisis. It needs some sort of political response and diplomatic response rather than financial or economic kind of response.
Right, and I appreciate that both of you have, highlighted the moving parts for us, the tangible stuff, but also the background stuff that gives us the bad blood between the two. Giorgio, putting all of those things together, we have Ahmed, who's quite worried. He fears this might end up a full-blown war. Do you agree with him? How close are we to a full-blown war?
There is no doubt that the militarization of the Red Sea, most recently illustrated by President Erdogan's visit to Sudan, which has led to some speculation that Turkey will establish a military foothold on Sudan's Red Sea coast, is certainly contributing to this new environment where there is a higher risk of a military confrontation happening. That being said, I think it's pretty clear that all of the parties involved in this dispute understand that there is more to lose than to gain from going to war over the dam or any of the territory. So I'm not so sure we need to be extremely worried about the worst case scenario, although that's absolutely a risk at this point.
Yeah, and Ahmed, who might be a mediator? You said regionally. Let's kind of unpack this a little bit, right? Because if we look at all the powerful countries with some clout, they're on at least one side of the GCC crisis, when you think about it. And then you have the transnational institutions, which a lot of countries don't really trust. So tangibly, who could actually sit these countries down and say, okay, we need to talk and we need to thrash this out? Who has the moral authority and the political clout?
It's very difficult to say. But before that, let me just highlight one of the factors. That the other factor actually which exacerbates the current conflict and the current tension actually is the issue of this what I call it actually scramble for the Horn of Africa. Because it seemed to me that some international powers also, they tried actually to have some sort of presence in the Red Sea and for this international trade and all this kind of thing. And definitely actually they have their own, I don't want to say agent, but they have their own partners actually in the region. That in itself actually is not also helping the situation to destabilize the situation, but actually make the situation more complicated or something like that. And the thing that makes me more concerned actually about this confrontation could explode or something like that, because actually all these regimes actually and government, they have their own internal problems, which is like trying to escape actually and to divert attention from them. For example, Sudan right now, as we speak, there is some sort of protest actually over this increase of basic commodities or something like that. Egyptian government also, they have their own internal problems. Ethiopian government as well as the Eritrean government actually, they have their own internal problems. So they tend actually to exacerbate this kind of thing, or even to escalate this kind of tension to divert the attention from their own internal problems. And this is very dangerous as well. But as mediators, I think African Union in a good position, to at least, because this is the regional organization that we have. We don't have other regional organization or something. I think they have the responsibility actually to act and try actually to de-escalate the current tension. And also the IGAD. I know that Eritrean government, they have their own concern about IGAD, but it's still IGAD also one of the, respected affected sub-regional organization also. And the other powers as well, Turkey, Russia, United States, the big five actually at the Security Council. I think this is also this issue. If it explode or something like that, is going to endanger and to threaten the regional international peace and security. So they have some sort of responsibility also to act. But actually, I'm not happy with the silence of all this kind of organization, African Union, IGAD, and even the UN Security Council.
Okay, Giorgio, who can mediate?
I think it's interesting to contemplate the idea of Russia taking advantage of this tension as another opportunity to sell itself as an indispensable mediator in the Arab world. Keep in mind that both the regimes in Cairo and Khartoum have looked to the Kremlin in recent months, recent years, to advance their own geopolitical interests in the region. Obviously, this positions Russia uniquely. The United States, despite lifting some sanctions on Sudan, maintains an overall negative relationship with the Bashir regime for a host of other reasons. Nonetheless, I think Russia might try to insert itself here as a diplomatic mediator, just as Moscow has done in Libya, Syria, and other parts of the Arab world too.
Yeah, we'll be keeping a close eye on Russia. Ahmed Adam, I want to ask you a final question regarding both countries trying to keep each other busy and the accusations. So the one accusation that we highlighted earlier on, that the Egyptians saying Sudan is supporting the Muslim Brotherhood in order to undermine Sisi, and on the other hand, you have the Sudanese accusation that it is Egyptian intelligence that is supporting opposition figures, Egyptian intelligence that is supporting opposition rebels in places like Darfur and so on. These are the claims. Are they true? Are they both doing this?
Maybe actually, maybe some stage actually of the history of the relationship that might happening, but actually there is no clear kind of evidence on that kind of thing or something like that. But this is actually in the back of mind of every government, actually in Cairo and also in Khartoum. As I said that, the perception in Khartoum that Sisi is actually is just, came through military coup, and then he overthrew Morsi, his Muslim Brotherhood. And Sisi himself actually is accusing them of supporting, the Muslim Brotherhood to undermine his own government. And now, with the presence of President Erdogan or something, that actually flared the whole thing up, because they think that actually President Erdogan come to Khartoum actually in support of the Sudanese government, which is, in their perception is Muslim Brotherhood, supporting actually Muslim Brotherhood. And this is actually is going to be on and on for a long time. They need to build some sort of trust, because Egypt and Sudan, they have been in that geography for a long time. They need actually to talk to each other, and they need actually to, to clear this kind of concern from Cairo and here and there. But as I said, because there is some sort of sharp division because of this international alliances or something like that, both countries actually and both governments actually they play this kind of alliances to survive in power. Bashir actually he want to survive in power, and he want to secure actually his his chance actually to run for 2020 elections. Right. Abdel Fattah says also he want to run for election this year or something like that, and he want to stabilize his regime. And this kind of alliances actually, regional alliances, international alliances actually is not playing good role actually in terms of keeping the region actually in a stable way, or secure or something. So. Right. It's very difficult actually, to prescribe any kind of solution, to this. But they need to negotiate, and they need actually to deepen their trust, or to build their trust.
Certainly. Nobody wants to see a war, whether it is triggered by water or anything else. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you, Giorgio Cafiero and Ahmed Adam. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Newsmakers.